Hello, welcome back to IT Lundy. For today, we will cover part 5 of Module 3 for Active Directory Federation Services. For this part, which is part 5, we're going to do the configuration for access control policies for the application. A quick recap: we did Module 3 A, B, C, D, and today will be E. Let's have a look what we have for you today around the access control, how we can configure access control, and so on. So access control policy shifts the authorization decision away from the application and back to the STS. It either permit or deny access to an application based on the criteria either identity, group membership, location, device registration, multi-factor authentication. I have been dealing with this a lot with access policy, and especially for application. It used to be primarily all around identity, but nowadays we have the conditional access and multi-factor. Then we are just improving the condition around this area. Let me show you what I mean by this, since Microsoft improved it. The access control policies, this is inbox policies. You can see there either permit specific group. At the moment they are not in use, but you can see permit everyone in the internet zone, permit everyone with MFA, permit everyone require MFA for a group. What does that mean? You can either permit everyone, or permit specific group from AD, or permit specific group with multi-factor authentication, or if the traffic coming from extranet, then apply MFA either for everyone or for a group, or just permit everyone without MFA. Now, how can I customize this? You can see on the right hand side on the screen there is an add access policy which you can click on, and that will display for us this screen. You give it a name and then you click add, and that will open for us the rule editor. Through the rule editor you can see, as I highlighted earlier, either everyone or users from specific network, users from specific groups, if the device registered or trusted, then require device registration with specific claim in the request, like header, body, key value, and you can have exception as well. So for example, I might allow traffic, allow the traffic from extranet for any device registered, with exception for maybe group A or group P. For example, I have a IT technician out and about, got two groups. Group 1, they do, for example, security. Group 2, they do support. I would like to allow the group who deal with the security to validate their MFA, which means I apply the condition to them, but I would like to put exception for group B, which is the technician. I don't need them to apply MFA because there's nothing special. Maybe, yeah? So you got the point, hopefully. You can have exception for certain, and this is how you can do it. Either managing compliance or authentication, as you can see on the screen. Again, these are the conditions where you can create custom. As soon as you create the custom, it will show up as your custom application. So if you ever decided to play with this, please do think about naming convention which reflect either the location. For example, we just created a new custom condition, or policy. Now I want to prepare these names so they can reflect and they can be more useful and they can be more flexible and sophisticated, rather than just like testing, fiddling, and then they look mess later on, and then you have to rewrite and do all this again and again and again. Hopefully this will give you some information which we can take and you move on with this. It's really important, and I do really advise to have a look at this because Microsoft improved it really well. Next, I'm going to show you still part 3, but we're going to touch reverse proxy. Now with the reverse proxy, what we need to do, we mentioned earlier, in addition to reverse publishing of ADFS, web application proxy may be configured to do reverse publishing internal web application. You can do pre-authentication methods. You can use either ADFS or you can use Passthrough. What does this look like for us? Here it is. When you do configuration for your reverse proxy, we spoke about WAP. Either you can choose dealing with ADFS, or you can use Passthrough. If you do select option 1, all the unauthenticated client requests are redirected to the federation server. After successful authentication by ADFS, client requests are forwarded to the back-end server, and then web application proxy can also provide credentials to the back-end for validation. Or you do Passthrough. Passthrough, which requires no pre-authentication, is performed on the web application. All requests are forwarded to the back-end server. Let's have a look at each of these options and see how that will work for us. 1. Pre-authentication for ADFS. A direct client to ADFS for authentication, direct client to the backend claim based on application after success. Then the constraint with this approach is the delegation. This approach, there are some issues with delegation to the backend using Windows internal authentication application, like either Kerberos or NTLM. Web application proxy server need to be domain joined. If you recall earlier, part 2, we said the most common one is for web, it's not domain joined. But if I decided to do this, I need to make it domain joined because I will, try to authenticate. Now, if that one is domain joined, which means our design needs to be reviewed. I cannot put this one anymore in my DMZ unless I apply firewall policies in and out and control it. Otherwise, I put internal and the firewall will take care of the nothing of this. Also, web application proxy is trusted for constrained delegation to the backend application. Backend application is configured as non-claim aware relaying party. Hopefully that makes sense to you, just in case if you choose that option. Now, ADFS pre-authentication supports these types or different clients. Web and MSO FBA, web application with Microsoft Office clients, HTTP basic, Exchange ID, Active Sync, and the most desired option, which is modern authentication or Auth2 for Windows Store application and Microsoft. Now, the HTTP basic is for applications that do not support HTTP redirection for basic authentication to use authenticated users. Here we go. This is how it looks like for us. Web and Microsoft Office, or HTTP basic or modern authentication. And you can see there are some dependency, like for example, if I use HTTP basic, I have the option to enable access only for workplace joined machines, which is like partial domain joined, and I can apply policies and I can use security around it. Next is reverse proxy via Passthrough. If I used to do Passthrough, web application proxy receive requests over HTTPS. It repackage the request to backend application from HTTP as HTTPS and allow the client to authenticate directly with the backend application. The settings for the publishing, you need to map external to internal name. You need to have specified a certificate used for the SSL communication. It does the redirection for the HTTP to HTTPS, and this is only new in 2016 server, so you cannot use the earlier release. How it looks like for us, something like this. Okay, so you have the claim name, external URL, certificate, and you can enable HTTP to HTTP redirection, and you can specify the back end. This is if you are familiar with the old day we used to use like TMG or ISA 2006. We used to do the same principle, and here yet again Microsoft improved it and they introduced it back after they removed it from Windows 2008 and 2012 R2. This is back like the old days. This is all what I had for you today for publishing with reverse proxy and for the claim language with access control. Hopefully you have learned something useful, and I shall see you in part 6 of module 3. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.